Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you. His name is Michael D. Levitt. He's the founder and Chief Burnout Officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network. It's a media firm dedicated to addressing burnout and improving workplace culture. He's a certified NLP and CBT therapist, and he hosts the popular Breakfast Leadership Show podcast. Michael has authored books on burnout prevention, and he has over 25 years of experience in leadership, coaching, and personal development, which is right up our alley on this podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Michael. I'm
Great to
delighted to
be with
have
you.
you.
I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, this is exciting because I love leadership. And of course, all veterinarians know that burnout feeling, at least at some point in our career. I think I read somewhere that 50% of veterinarians say that they are either burned out or have been burned out in their career. So that's a lot. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited to talk about this.
yeah.
So
It's
my
it's alarming for sure.
It is, it's scary, right? It's not good for us. So anyway, my first question to all my guests is always to tell me their story because I like to kind of hear how people got to this, what you're doing today.
Yeah, we'll start in 2007. I was just hired as a new healthcare executive for a startup primary care clinic just outside of Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I'm a dual citizen, U.S. and immigrated to
Oh,
Canada
cool. We love our
back.
Canadian friends.
Yep, dual citizen. So I like to joke I can vote and screw up two countries, and then I leave it there because then everybody says, well, "Who'd you vote for?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you who I
Isn't
voted
that the
for."
truth? Does it matter who we vote for?
No, it's Bozo A or Bozo B. Basically, is my
Exactly.
opinion on all of it. But
Right.
so here I am, in this new role as a healthcare executive for the startup, and I had zero healthcare experience. And but I had startup experience in other industries when I'd worked at other companies and whatnot. So here I am. I know nothing about healthcare other than being a sometimes occasional user of the system. So here I am tasked with a brand new clinic recruiting and hiring physicians, clinicians, ordering equipment, trying to figure out what an autoclave is. And
All those fancy words.
it's a really expensive dishwasher, but you don't put dishes in it. You put scalpels and things like that to
Exactly.
sterilize them. Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
great description.
Yeah, that's how my nurse that I hired explained it to me, and she said,
I
"Can I bring
love
my
that.
laundry in there?" It's like, "No, do not put your laundry in here." I'm like, "How about my spoon? It'll be really no, no, no food items. We use this for surgical procedures."
Right, right.
Got it. So here I am. I had to learn all of that, and it was a steep learning curve, but I learned it, and was successful in growing that business. And again, that was 2007. Last time I checked, there's several people that I hired at that clinic that are still there, and that was
Nice.
that was a long time ago. So I've been very fortunate that I've been really good at finding amazing people to be part of what I was part of. But
Right.
the challenge with that organization, as anybody knows that launches their own business or starts new into their career, and vets, of course, we know work some insane hours because they as much as they would love to work 9 to 5, and maybe some do, most people also are in that window, so they can't bring their loved ones and their pets to get seen except at nights and weekends because
Right.
they're working.
Right.
So it creates some really insane hours for a lot of these people. But for me, I was basically for 2 years working more or less 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. It was constant.
Yeah,
And I
that's
wasn't the owner of the organization. I was an employee, but I took it upon myself. I did not have the boundaries around when I worked and when I didn't. And, I was basically, much like any type of science experiment where someone, your boss or somebody will send you a note and you respond right away. Well, you're conditioning them that you're going to respond quickly. So
right
they would
away. Yeah.
send messages at all day and all night because they had a thought of something. And nothing wrong with, who I reported to on that. They wanted this clinic to be a pillar in the community. They did a lot of work in order to create it and make sure that it came to be. So they put a lot of time and effort. This was a passion project for them.
Sure.
And I understand that. But I should have said, okay, here's when I'm working, here's when I'm not. So, fast forward to 2009. In May of 2009, I had what I like to refer to as my year of worst case scenarios. Now, I mentioned
Mhm.
Windsor, Ontario. That's across the border from Detroit,
Right.
Michigan.
Which is where I am.
Oh, well, welcome. I grew up in, grew up Pontiac, Waterford, and spent some time in Livonia. So,
Exactly
I'm
where I grew up and I live now.
there you go. So, we know about M59 and everything else like that. So,
Yep.
all good. So, here I am, that year of worst case scenario. So this is what happened. Number one, in May of 2009, I had a heart attack that literally should have killed me. My cardiologist that put stents in my left anterior descending artery, which is known as the widowmaker,
Yeah.
told me, when he came in before he did the procedure, you should be dead. And I accused him of skipping bedside manner class in medical school. He
What?
laughed. I laughed. My first wife and my mom did not find that joke funny because they were
No.
in next to me on that.
Uh-huh.
But long story short, that kicked off my horrible year. So over a period of a year, had a heart attack that should have killed me. 17 weeks later, that clinic let me go because they wanted to go in a different direction. 2009. Anybody remember the Great Recession?
Yes, I was
And
there.
you and me both. So we know the government had to bail out the auto sector, and I know a couple of the automakers, General Motors and Chrysler, had filed bankruptcy.
Right.
So the government had to bail them out. Otherwise, GM and Chrysler would not be here today. And even as diverse as the state of Michigan is trying to become, losing General Motors, actually for the entire country, but especially
Right.
the Detroit area, would be catastrophic. So
Sure.
that's why they stepped in. But needless to say, jobs were nowhere to be found. The rest of the country was going through a recession. The Detroit area and Windsor was basically a depression. There was
Right.
just nothing around. So I was unemployed for several months, ended up having to relocate to Toronto. No, I am not a Maple Leafs fan. I'll throw that in there. It's just DNA impossibility. Sorry. As much as even if I wanted to, it can't physically happen.
You have to
I'm
go
sorry,
for the
but
Red Wings, is that it?
I don't have to. But but there's a stink rule. I cannot be a Leafs fan, so I'm fine with that. But so you have the cardiac event. Now I'm unemployed and in an area where there's no jobs. I was on heart medication that cost me $1,000 a month out of pocket. So needless to say, little hard to cover all your bills when you're on unemployment and you have a
Right.
family and all of
Yeah.
that. So and
Unemployment
we
doesn't pay much.
no, it's it best 50%. So, anybody take a 50% pay cut and let me know how things go. Usually most people aren't going to be doing really well about that. So what
Right.
happened from there is obviously, I'd worked with our creditors because we had a mortgage and car payment and all that fun stuff. And I worked with the creditors and they were really gracious as long as they could be, considering that so many people were going through the same thing because of the
Right.
economic downturn. So I finally found a job in Toronto and ended up, having to relocate, move the family, and all that kind of good stuff. There was about a 2 month period where I was commuting on the weekends back to the Windsor area to get the house ready because we were going to sell, and we found a place to move the family up in Toronto and all of that. So I'm up at my new job, and it was 4:08 p.m. on a Thursday, and my daughter, who was 10 at the time, called, and she's crying, couldn't understand the thing she was saying. Finally, she said, they took the car. So the bank had repossessed our family vehicle because, well, when you don't make car payments, the
They
bank's
want
going
their
to.
car back. Yeah.
Again, and I was never mad at that bank. I continued to bank with that bank because I didn't meet my end of the obligation.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So I moved, finally find a place up in Toronto, move the family up, get back to unpacking everything, realize that we left the bunk bed ladder back at the old house that we were getting ready to list on the market. So I was going back there the next weekend to close out some accounts and do some other things. So went down there, did all of that stuff, went to the house, and went to get the ladder. And I opened up the front screen door. And saw the biggest padlock I've ever seen in my life. You can't buy this padlock at Home Depot. They don't sell it to civilians. And there was a sticker on the door that said foreclosure.
Oh,
Now, what was weird is, and I don't know why, there was some correspondence back and forth, but we never got that final demand letter from the bank, but they foreclosed it. So in a year, heart attack that should have killed me, job loss in the recession, car repossession, home foreclosure. Think about your worst case nightmares for people.
yeah.
Any of
Yeah.
those,
I think all
one
of
of the,
those things.
yeah,
Right.
one of those things is horrible. I did it all 4 in a year because I wanted to
All
get
in a
them over with.
year. Oh, that's quite a year.
Yeah. And all those things happened because I was burned out. I wasn't taking
Mm.
care of myself. I wasn't
Yep.
sleeping. My nutrition plan, because I was working all those hours, was pretty much breakfast, lunch, and dinner, ordering through a microphone, driving around the corner, getting handed a brown bag. You can kind of figure out what kind of food I was eating.
Sure. Yeah.
And just the long hours, no boundaries, cutting out things in life that I enjoy doing because I was too busy. At the time, and this is 2009, that was when the Detroit Tigers were really good, like they are this season. But they were really good. They went to the World Series a few times and were in playoff contention all the time. I was a season ticket holder. So I had season tickets
And
to,
you weren't going.
I weren't going. I wasn't
Oh,
going. And
that's
when
heart.
you have and here's yeah, that's the scary, and that should have been the biggest red flag to me prior to everything that happened. That should have been
Right.
the big warning sign for me, but I ignored it because
Yeah.
here's the frustrating thing. And I love the game of baseball. My first career in public accounting was because of baseball cards because I could figure out the stats in the back and I was good at it. So I'm like, okay, this might be a good career vocation for me. So I blame Topps baseball cards for my first career, or thank them, however you want to look at it.
Right. Right.
But the frustrating thing about having season tickets is, and especially with that package, you had the tickets to the game, you had the parking voucher to park, at the garage at Comerica Park,
Right.
food voucher, beer voucher. I just had to show up. I didn't have to bring any money. I could just
Right.
go.
Right. It was all paid for
Everything
already,
was already paid for.
and you just didn't
I,
take the
I quit going.
time.
I quit going. And again, I look back at that and I was like, yeah, that should have been a big red flag for me because when I first bought those tickets, we had them for, I think at that point, 3 seasons. The childhood dream to go to a game. I was able to go to a bunch of games.
All the games. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was so frustrating that I just quit going.
Well,
But
and the thought in that is my job is more important
yeah,
than anything.
hmm
And I think that's what happens to veterinarians, and that's how we get sucked into this kind of lifestyle that you're talking about.
yeah, and with vets, being a dog owner, and I've got a 5-month-old puppy that we talked a little bit about in the pre-show, who's
Yeah,
um,
tell him his name.
his name is
Sebastian.
Sebastian. He's a
Yeah.
Bichon Poodle. He is full of energy. He is pretty much the head of the social community in our condo complex because we got 4 condo buildings. Pretty much everybody knows who he is. We've had him for 2 months. Everybody knows who he is because he is this outgoing, playful. Uh, one of our neighbors in our building yesterday, I saw her on the elevator. I didn't have him with, and she said, "Your dog is always smiling." He's just a happy, happy dog. I say, I know he loves people and dogs the same. He gets so excited to see people. He gets excited to see dogs. He just is living his best life. And I took him to the vet yesterday and got his, final puppy vaccine. So he's all inoculated up and
Ready
um
to
he
go.
he's like he gets there. And I know, and vets, this. Some dogs will come in, and cats probably too, and other animals. But some dogs go in there, they're pulling to get out the door. They're like, I don't
Right.
want any part of this place.
Yeah.
He's pulling to go in the back in every room and greet everybody and see what everybody's going on. All the techs came out in the main area, and he was just, rolling on his back, and they're all petting him. He's like, and one of them said he should be an honorary employee. And I'm thinking to myself, if I need a break for a couple hours, I may
Yeah,
actually
just
take him
drop
up
him
on
off.
the. Here you go.
I
It's like,
used
what
to
is it?
tell clients that. I'm like, well, just drop them off here for a couple hours. We'll play with them.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the best parts of our jobs, when we get to
hmm
see those happy dogs that really like us.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he loves the vet.
Awesome.
He just yeah. They give him the needle. He's just like, what are you doing?
Whatever.
Yeah, okay, okay. I'm gonna just continue, being on my happy-go-lucky way. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
cute.
yeah, he's a fun one. But ultimately, again, when you're working, and the thing with burnout too is, in many ways, it happens innocently. Like in my situation, and with vets and other industries, you're passionate about what you do. You love what you do. You love
Sure.
being a vet. You love improving and taking care of our furry friends. We love them to bits. And as a vet, you get to experience that and help them and keep them healthy so they can live as long as possible. We all know they don't live long enough. It frustrates me that that's the case, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, what happens is when we start putting our passion and our work as a bigger priority than ourself, that's when you can start running into some issues if you don't have the boundaries around when you work and when you don't. And that can be difficult, especially if you're a one-person veterinary shop. You've got your technicians with you, but you are the vet. Yeah, you're like, people need me these hours, but you also need yourself for those hours because as a patient or owner of a patient, I want my veterinarian to be healthy. That way they
Mhm.
can be rested and energetic and have clear mind to be able to diagnose any issues that might be going on with my dog or other dogs or cats. And when you're working too many hours and you're fatigued, you're not sleeping, you're not resting, your body's starting to ache in places you didn't know you had. There's all these different things that start happening, and all of a sudden that shine and that happiness that you had about your role starts to turn into, this is tedious to the point where you actually hate this decision. You're like, I want to walk away from this and do something else, which is quite frankly such a loss. Because when people are passionate about the work that they do, whether they're a veterinarian or they're an auditor, an accountant, a painter, you name it, whatever they do, when they lose that enjoyment and luster, that's sad for society because like, oh, we're losing
Right.
out on somebody that's really good. So the key component in all of this is to figure out, okay, what is leading me to this path? What's going on? And sometimes you have to take a step back, which I know seems counterintuitive for many people, especially if they're working all the hours. It's like, hey, you got to take a time out. And it's not to say, well, I can rest and then I go back in. Well, I know, and I took a vacation in 2008, just prior to, the kickoff of my awesome year,
Yeah.
and went to Florida, did the Disney thing with the kids, all that good stuff. Came back, nothing changed because I didn't do anything to address it. I just took some time off. When I went back, the work was there on top of the work that I didn't do while I was away. So it
You
can be
just kind of
overwhelming.
got right back into it.
Yeah, I just picked up. It's like, okay, I've taken a break from my agony. Okay, let's pick the agony back up again. And that's no way to live. And you know this, I know this. There are, tons and tons of veterinarians and vet techs and other people that work in the industry that aren't burning out, that are working a lot of hours, but they're not
Right.
burning out. And
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, is there a secret sauce?
The difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is, the language that we use in our internal dialogue, and that's kind of where the NLP and CBT stuff comes in.
Right.
It's the self-talk, the dialogue that goes on our head, which is constant, and some people it's all the time.
Right.
Other
I call
people,
it the
no.
Chihuahua brain because it reminds me of a little scared dog that gets all like
Yeah,
crazy, barks all
that's
the time. And I'm like, that's why I call it that part of our brain, the Chihuahua brain.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's always announcing things, and it's yeah, because a lot of times it's scared, and there's that fear. There's the fear of missing out if I don't work all these hours, or okay, there's another clinic opening up. If I cut my hours, am I going to lose patients? And you start doom thinking about everything, and you go, well, what happens if you take care of yourself? Then people say, you know what? Yeah, their hours aren't as great as Clinic B over there, but I love the team there. And
Right.
like in my vet, I drive past a couple other vet locations to go to that one. Why? Because I like it there. They're
Yeah.
really good for my puppy. I'm not, thankfully, I don't have to quote unquote price compare kind of thing. It's going to be around the same no matter what, just industry
Right.
standards. But I drive past other ones that would be quote unquote more convenient for me to go to the one that I want to go to. And their hours aren't as good as the ones that I'm driving by. But I
Right.
understand that.
Right.
And
You're
when
doing
you're
it by
re
choice.
yeah, when you're really good and all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, and you're like, okay, I've cut my hours. Now we're still busy. Well, then you go, what, maybe it's time to bring on an additional veterinarian or
Mhm.
to help with the other hours. And, you know, spread the wealth a little bit
Right.
and grow your practice. You see more patients, you grow your business, you're helping out more people. They enjoy working there, so it actually becomes a good thing. But again, I see it all the time where you go into organizations and there are going to be some people that are prone to burnout and others that doesn't matter what you throw at them, they just don't. And a lot of it is just their mindset, how they take care of themselves, how they prioritize themselves, how they take care of themselves. There's a lot
Yeah.
of ingredients to it. Believe me, I wish there was a magic pill that could eradicate it. There isn't, but there are behaviors and actions you can do to help mitigate it and hopefully prevent it.
Well, let me ask you this because I kind of pulled you a little bit off of your story because I asked you a question and we kind of started going in the burnout direction. But when you were in that place where you were not going to your baseball games and
hmm
working your butt off and spending all your days and hours there, the heart attack's what stopped it. Did you realize that you were burned out before you had this horrible year? Did you
I,
know you were burned out, or
I,
was it a revelation after you had this terrible year?
it was a revelation that came to me during that 17-week break in between work and then when I got let go because
Okay.
I was off of work for 17 weeks
Sitting
and
there with your
sitting
health
there.
problems going, okay, how did this
Yeah,
happen? And,
yeah, and for me, I wasn't cleared to really do anything. I couldn't drive for like the first, I think, 6 weeks, maybe eight
ugh.
weeks.
Yeah, that's gotta be
So
maddening.
well, think about it. You're go, 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 constantly going, and then all of a sudden you are at a complete stop.
Yeah.
And you can't check email because you're off of work. And you go, okay,
Now
what?
who am I?
Now, yeah, what am I? Yeah, and I think a lot of people identify who they are with their roles, their jobs. We
Right.
see it,
Sure.
I don't want to go into, the demographics and things, but we have seen that certain generations tend to be more prone to identify with their roles. The younger generations, not as much yet. We That may change though. I
Sure.
don't know. But I
Right.
think a lot of people say, I am this. Okay. You are human.
Right.
You do this. And again, that's a tough mind shift change for a lot of people. And as we talked a little bit in the pre-show, I've had multiple careers. I'm thankful for the opportunities. If you would have said to me, in the mid 90s that I was going to be doing all the things that I've been able to do over these last 30 years, I would have went, why in the world would I want to do that?
Right.
I don't know how to do that. Well, somehow I figured out how to. And it's amazing what we can do when we put our mind to it. And so for me, during that time, it was, eye-opening. Okay. I talked to, friends and family. I said, yeah, I didn't realize I was burned out. And they all said, we knew you were burned out. And I said, why didn't you tell me? We did. We
And you
kept
didn't
trying
listen.
to. I
Yeah.
wasn't hearing it. I did
Right.
not hear it. I
Yeah.
thought, I'll work through this. I'm gonna get through this. We're almost there. It's just a little bit
It'll
longer. We
change.
almost
That's what a
got it.
lot of people think. Oh, it's going to change
Yeah.
if I
No.
just work for, one more year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They think just a little bit more, and
right.
we'll get. Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's like the sign you see free beer tomorrow. Well, you come back tomorrow, the sign still says free beer tomorrow. It's the same kind of thing in a way. And like you just, yeah, no, it's not going to change unless you make some adjustments in your life. And for some people, in my situation, I made the decision. I think it was the right one for me to really take a long, basically I want to say unbiased, but non-critical look at how I was living my life. And what helped me, and I wish I would have worked with a therapist back then because I think it would have helped expedite some things.
It's
And
faster, right?
yeah, oh, for
If
sure.
somebody else is helping you get through this stuff, it accelerates the process
Oh,
than you
definitely.
sitting there and trying to figure out how to do it yourself.
Yeah. But I had a good colleague of mine who isn't a therapist, probably should be one, but he said, you know what? Start looking back at things, but promise me this. Try it from this approach. Pretend you're 5 years old and you're asking questions like you asked your parents when you were little. What's this? What's this? Why does it do this? Why does it do this? Approach when you do the deep dive into why did you make the choices you made that led you to this situation, approach it with a childlike curiosity. Do not judge yourself. Do not beat yourself up. That last year beat you up good. And
Sure.
this was
You
actually
didn't
this was
add more.
actually this conversation actually took place before the job loss, car repo, and home foreclosure. So, but it was one of those things that I kept going back to as I was navigating through those things that happened later on.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, why was it important to me to work all those hours? And what was I trying to accomplish? Well, I
Yeah, it's
wanted,
almost like, what are you trying to prove?
yeah, and
Because
a lot, go ahead.
I know just from the years of being a veterinarian, the clients are always going to keep coming, whether I'm there or not. And so why do we feel so compelled to help everybody and do everything? And I think that's part of one of the questions you have to ask yourself is,
Yeah,
why do I think that this is important and that I'm the one that has to do it?
yeah. I see entrepreneurs all the time really struggle with this, especially when they're first starting off. Okay,
Right.
I got to get the website up. I got to get the social media. I've got to do this. I got to have the storefront. I got to get this type of sign. I got to buy this type of furniture. I got to do this. I got to take
Right.
out these ads. And they're just, I got to. And a lot of times, like, okay, what do you want? And I ask people this all the time. A year from now, what would you want your business or your life to look like? Pie
That's
in
a
the
good
sky.
question.
Yeah, pie in the sky.
Yeah.
And sometimes if they're really burned out, they can't see this afternoon, much less a year from
A
now.
year out. Yeah.
So that's when you go, okay, well, all right, well, what would you like this afternoon to look like? You just scale it back to the point
Yeah.
where they are. And
Right.
then once they start getting a little bit more clarity, it makes it a little bit easier to do that. And eventually, for most people, they get to the point where they think, okay, this is what I would like it to look like. Okay, where are you now? And when you answer that question, please don't beat yourself up. You're like, well,
Right.
my business is this. Like, do you know how many people start businesses compared to the population of the world? You are in my extreme minority of
Right.
people that have taken the risk to go out on your own or be part of, and we know this, the veterinary industry is insanely understaffed
Right.
because we saw it, and we talked about this a bit in the pre-show, the pandemic, where just a
Yes.
gigantic spike of pet owners, and that has continued. So it's
Sure.
like, okay, there's more pets and more pet owners than we have veterinarians. So you have this tug of war where you want to, like you mentioned before, you want to see and help everybody. You can't. You
Right.
just can't. It's not
Yeah.
humanly possible. Don't, and you shouldn't try to.
Yeah, you
What?
shouldn't have to. I mean, you shouldn't feel like you have to.
No,
It's that
there,
thought that,
yeah.
you can't turn anyone away and you have to stay after work late to help someone. And yeah, it doesn't feel good to turn people away.
Oh
It is
no.
difficult. However, there's always solutions. And I think that's part of unraveling that, whatever your thoughts are about that overachieving that got you in burnout in the first place.
Yeah, and it's like, well, present day, and I saw this the other day where a lot of people, of course, with, AI, everybody's saying we're all going to lose our jobs to AI. I don't hold your breath on that. I mean, yeah, there's going to be certain
Right.
roles that make sense. Yeah, there's
Right.
certain things that can be automated. We've seen that. In the
Sure.
auto sector, we know that there's a lot more robots that are on the assembly line than there were, when I was growing up. But
Right.
there's still people working in the auto plants.
Right.
So same thing. There's still going to be doctors needed and clinicians and plumbers and electricians and all of these things. The trades, quite frankly, in many cases, will be seeing quite the rebound. And because the population is growing, there's new buildings, there's new expansion. They need plumbers, they need electricians, they need
Sure.
maintenance people. Where I am, there's just an absolute ton of condo buildings that are around and new condo buildings that are being built. We're going to need elevator technicians. We're going to need, people that work in
Right.
HVAC for those types of buildings that service that. And there's not enough of those people. So things shift. We don't have as many people making horseshoes anymore for horses because Henry Ford was stubborn and decided to do something about that.
Right.
And even when people told him don't, he ignored them and did it. And well, now look at us. Uh,
Right.
but uh, but there's You can't do it all, and you shouldn't. And if you're worried about that, you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I worried? Are you worried because you won't get any business? Well, you have a ton of business that's, asking you to work all these hours. That's not the problem. You don't want to let people down. If you try to please everybody, you're going to please no one, and all you're doing is you're harming yourself. You're diminishing yourself. Yes, are people going to be upset? Yeah, because their expectations and what they want that's convenient for them may not be accessible because
Visible.
of the shortage
Yeah.
of vets, for example. So what you do is you advocate, and I know there's plenty of industries that do this. I know you're a big champion of this as well, where we need to entice more people to become veterinarians and go into
Right.
that industry.
Hmm.
We see it, my original career, public accounting, huge, huge challenge because there are a ton of baby boomer aged uh, accountants that are, saying, you know what, I'm going to turn in my last audit report or I'm going to do my last tax return for clients. I'm punching out, time to retire. The challenge is there has not been the steady increase of new accountants coming into the industry. So there are some significant shortfalls, and we're already seeing it in talking with a lot of audit firms
Right.
where they're turning down business because they can't take it on. I'm like, what? It's like you can't. You're turning away business because you can't take on any more
Right.
clients because you're
Right.
maxed out. Like, okay, all right, that's interesting. So again, there is another industry, not that this has turned into a job board discussion, but there
Right.
are opportunities out there. And talk with, if you're a vet, talk with your friends that were, decent at science, please. We don't want anybody that, failed, science class. The only reason I passed science class is Mr. Burrell did not want to see me again another year. So he
He
gave me
pushed
the
you.
C and sent me on my way. And I took that C, and that was probably of all my classes in high school, that I was more proud of that C than any of the A's or B's that I got. My parents were like, you got a C. It's like, that's a gift.
Yeah.
Please, just
I
a
would have
gift.
had an F, so just
Yeah,
be
yeah,
grateful.
yeah. It's like, nah, no, nah, yeah, I just no, I didn't get it. Would I get it now? Possibly. Do I have an interest in that? No, even though I worked in healthcare, I knew
Right.
enough to, keep me out of trouble, and I knew what lane to stay in.
Right.
But ultimately, it boils down to when you're trying to prevent burnout, is boundaries around how you spend your time. You got to take care of you first and figure out what that looks like because everyone's different when it comes to that. Yeah, some people can work longer hours and it has no impact on them ever. And there are some
Well, and some
people,
people enjoy their work so much that that is self-care
mhm,
if they're doing it in a balanced way.
yeah,
I would argue because if
yeah,
you really enjoy it, but you're there, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, eventually you're not going to enjoy it.
yeah, it will catch up to you. You
Right.
have to have other interests. You're like, well, I don't have any other interests. We'll go find some.
That's a
Try,
sad statement, right? Is I don't
yeah,
have any other interests. And I think part of what gets us into trouble as veterinarians is we were so interested in being a vet and there's a clear path.
mhm,
You go to high school, then you go to college, then you go to vet school, and then you're a vet.
mhm,
Then after that, you're not in the mindset of like growing yourself because you've achieved all your goals.
right,
And we forget that, there's other goals as a human, whatever they are, whether they're having a family or running a side business or doing a hobby that we have a tendency to squash down because we don't have time. And that's kind of what you did. You
yeah,
squashed your baseball
yeah,
hobby in
yeah.
order because you didn't have time to do this job that you thought only needed you. So tell me what your philosophy is on boundaries. Like if people are confused or don't
Mhm.
know how to start, where do they start? I love your idea about doing the what do you want your life to look like in 1 year? Because I do that exercise a lot with people. 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, however. And it's really a difficult exercise if you've never done it, but
Right.
it does help unlock a lot of things.
Oh, it does. Yeah, one of the things that I do with people is we do basically a time audit. And again, going back to my
I love
original
that.
career in public accounting, we had to account for, every 15 minutes of our day because
Right.
billable hours, that's how
Sure.
we made money. So that was important. And for a lot of people, they're like, do I have to keep track of every 15 minutes? I'm like, no, unless you want to.
Right.
You may not need to, but get an idea of how you spend your time, because so many of us, unfortunately, just hit the autopilot button and we just navigate through life aimlessly, and we get things done, but we don't really have an idea of, okay, how much time am I spending on my work and how much time am I spending on me?
Right.
And I tell this, and this is a colleague of mine, Virginia, taught me this several years ago, even after I was having people do their time audit. They said, okay, for your calendar, whether you use a paper calendar or use a digital calendar on your phone or your computer, what you need to do is code your work time and your meeting time and your me time, your self-care time, your time off time. Color code that, or if you're colorblind, then use your favorite symbol, because asking you to color code something is pretty cruel. So I'm not going to do that. Use your favorite symbol, or an asterisk, or a letter in parentheses, whatever helps you look at things. So for me, I color code things. My favorite color is blue, so I use that as my self-care or me time. So what I can
Mm,
do is I can look at my calendar, I can squint at it, not even see the text, but just look at the
right.
colors. And
See the color spread.
if I don't see enough blue, and the enough self-care time again varies for people. Some people need a
Sure.
lot more of it, some people need less. And I say, you want me to keep track of when I watch Netflix? Like, yeah, and I'm not to judge, just to give you
Right.
awareness. If you watch 10 hours of Netflix a day, okay, I'm not judging, but it's like that's a
Right.
lot. But
Yeah.
maybe you're using it for research. Maybe you write, you know, releases and press releases and things about shows or ideas, or maybe you write based on the themes you see and what you're watching. I'm not here to judge. I mean, whatever, but keep track of your time. So what happens is when you do that, you get a little bit more in tune with how you're spending your time,
Hmm.
and you go, okay, well, are there some adjustments that I can make? And maybe I can, group these things together, because I'm a big fan of batching like-minded tasks together. And if you're a vet and you're running a clinic, you can say, okay. And I remember my pediatrician doing this as a kid. I didn't know then, but ironically, a cousin of mine started working at that office just as I aged out of going to the pediatrician, and she's been there forever. So I don't want to do the math because it's depressing.
Right.
But it's there. My original career is accounting, so I can do the math. So I was like,
That's
I don't
right.
want to do that.
Yeah.
But they had, during the days, depending on the week, sick visits versus well visits, and they had two sections of their waiting room. There was a section with, where the sick and potentially contagious kids would go, and then the ones who were just there for checkups or allergy shots or whatever would be on
Right.
the other side. And they would segment it during, the days too, where they say, okay, usually Monday mornings they didn't do well visits because everybody gets
A
sick
lot
over
of
the
sick
weekend.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they adjusted accordingly. And then, they did well visits later in the week and whatnot. So they had that system down pretty good. And same thing. It's like, okay, as a vet, you're like, okay, what do we want to do on appointments? What do we want to do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays? Maybe something similar where Monday mornings
Yeah.
you hold off those slots, you don't load those up, maybe a few in the afternoon or maybe one or two in the morning for whatever's. But usually it's, like, case in point, I took my puppy for their last puppy vaccinations yesterday, which was a Tuesday. So okay, when we had to say goodbye to our previous puppy that we had, who made it almost 11 years, that was a Monday morning, 10:30 in the morning, because I called them first thing going, not
It was
looking good.
time.
Not
Yeah.
looking good.
Right.
And they had a slot open for that time because that's where they allocated. So my hunch is my
Sure.
vet does the same thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but you have to figure that out, what works for you. And it's
Right.
like, well, what works for our patients? Yes, take that into consideration, but you have to figure out what works for you first, because
Hmm.
you want to be the best version of you. Doesn't matter if you're a vet, an accountant, a lawyer. What will give you the best opportunity to be the best version of you? Well, that's one. You figure out how you spend your time, your energy levels match up with when you work. You're taking care of yourself physically and mentally because those two go hand in hand.
Sure.
And well, having worked in primary care in my career as well as an executive, you know, pretty much every chronic disease out there has stress as a contributing factor to lead to that chronic disease, whether
Yep.
it's diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, everything. You go, yeah, what's the ingredients? Okay, it's got, a couple of this, couple of this. Okay, 50 grams of stress, and like,
Exactly.
and
Yep.
I'm like, it's like, for my case, it was like, 6 cups. I was like, my measuring cup
Six
only
cups of
goes,
stress every
my,
day.
yeah, it's like my cup thing only goes to three. Well, load it
That's
up, dump it, load it up again, dump it. Then you got
yeah.
your 6 cups of stress, and so, or in that case, I was drinking, probably that much in coffee and all that, which
Sure. Yeah, which doesn't help either, right?
no, you have to harmonize things and figure out what's best for you. And I say this a lot. A few years ago I had a food intolerance test done because I know I have some food insensitivities, and
Hmm.
I actually do have a food allergy to potatoes, which I find hysterical because
That's
I'm Irish
fascinating.
descent. And I remember when I had it tested, I told
Right.
the tech, I said,
You're like, it
"Hey,
can't be.
no, I knew. I had an idea I was,
Oh, okay.
because I had inflammation.
Oh,
I didn't need an EpiPen or anything like that, but
right, right.
I
But you could
noticed some.
tell.
So I went in for the test and I said, just out of the blue, can you test to see if I'm allergic to potatoes? And I'm laying on my stomach, and the tech literally leaned down and looked at me in the face and they said, "What? Seriously?" I said, "Yeah. Can you test if I'm allergic to potatoes?" Yeah, I've never had anybody ask that before, but I can test you on that.
Okay. Yeah.
So they did the test. They came back and they said, "Well, son of a," and it's like, "What?" I'm like, "What? What? You're allergic to potatoes." I'm like, "Do I win a prize?" Yeah,
Yeah. Just
yeah.
because I knew
You're
myself well enough to tell
yeah.
that.
Your prize is you probably should stay away from fries. It's like,
Right.
okay, got it. So, but I had a food intolerance test done because I knew there are other foods that made me feel lethargic and whatnot. And I was curious. I'm like, okay, what am
Sure.
I, is there anything on there? So I get a, beautiful report from the lab, color coded. So there was the green page, which is
Which
like,
you liked.
yeah, I was happy about that. They didn't use blue though. It was like, red,
Yeah.
yellow,
It's
and
like,
green.
where's my blue?
They went the traffic light route on this. So
Oh,
the green page was great. It's like, your
eat
body
all this.
naturally absorbs this, processes this well. You can eat this. You should not have any issues. There was the
Right.
yellow pages that were like, results may vary, check and see. And then there was the red page that were like, depending on what this is, you may have, more challenges or maybe less, but these are some foods you probably should avoid. And what was so funny was one of the foods that was on the red page was eggs. And I'm like, wait a minute, breakfast leadership, my logo is an egg. Are you telling
Yeah.
me that I'm allergic to the name
You're
and my
allergic to your
logo?
breakfast network.
Like, I don't know how I feel about this. So
Yeah.
it's like, all right. And do I still consume eggs? Yes, occasionally. And I know what to expect from it. Thankfully it's not severe, because if it was severe, I would not.
Sure. You wouldn't
And
push the envelope.
well, a lot of people do though. They'll say, I
Right.
know this is bad for me, but I'm still going to do it
Yeah,
because
eat it anyway.
I need comfort food. And you're like, okay, you need comfort food. Why do you need comfort? What's causing you discomfort? And that's, again, this as a coach, you're pulling information out of people to start thinking
Right.
about it because they don't think about that. Like,
Yeah, it's
why do you need a
automatic.
comfort? Why do you need comfort food? What's going on that makes you want to crush that bag of potato chips or grab that bottle of whatever, or
Yes.
and it's coping mechanisms. It's like you're trying to
Right.
mask or band-aid something instead of letting the wound kind of heal. Okay, what do we need
Right.
to do to make that wound, if it is a wound, doesn't
Right.
necessarily need to be one, but if it
Yeah.
is, what is that? And
Yeah.
get them to start, excuse me, thinking about what that could be, and then adjust accordingly. Because again, that green page, I love pretty much everything that's on that. So I do my best to try to focus on that. Do I
Right.
bleed into the yellow and the red? Of course I do. Why?
Sometimes, yeah,
I'm
because you're a
human.
human. Right.
Yeah. You pull
Yeah.
in, you're like, I'm hungry, I gotta eat something. You look at the menu where you're at and you're going, Yeah, looks like I'm going to be in the yellow, at least yellow today, maybe a little red. Well, I know what that. Hey, let's minimize the damage as best you can,
Right.
and there are days where you
Do what you
just,
got to do.
yeah, there are days where you're like, screw it, I want this. My taste buds are going to win this war, and then the next day you go, why did I do that?
Why did I do that?
Why did I do
So
this?
talk to me a little bit about, because I talk about this sometimes on the podcast about boundaries.
Hmm.
Because when I was taught through my life coaching training and my compassion fatigue training, that we say boundaries, but I don't think anybody really understands what that is.
Hmm.
And there is a real way to do it
Yeah,
and think about it. So can you kind of explain your take on that, on a boundary and how you would create one?
yeah.
Like say
For
if you're working like you were too many hours and the light bulb came on and you were like, I think I'm burned out. I got to start making some boundaries.
yeah,
Like how
usually
would I do that?
Yeah, usually when you want to establish boundaries, it's in an organization that you've already been a part of. If you're starting a new role, it's really easy. They don't know how you work, so you can say, okay, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm
Then it's
not.
more like rules, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're setting the guidelines and the principles
Right.
or terms of engagement. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. But when you do it after that, your bosses or your managers are used to you doing things the way that you've been doing, and all of a sudden you want to change them, they might, and typically do in many cases, might take offense to that initially. So it's all about how you approach it. It's and how I, guide people depending on what type of relationship they have with their boss or bosses is say, okay, if they feel, let's say they feel overwhelmed or they're working way too many hours, and I say, okay, you know what, these are all the things that I'm working on right now, and you list them all out and you put them out there. It's like, okay, and it's like, I'm not complaining about this. I love the work that I'm doing. It's fulfilling to me. However, I notice that it is taking a toll on my physical and mental health. And I'm concerned that at this current state that there's a chance that my health may be compromised if I continue at this pace. Can we look at some of the things here and see if we can reprioritize some things? Because what I find a lot with, especially with managers that delegate to their all-star people, let's say you have a younger vet on your team and they're an all-star. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to let them do all this. They're going to pick up more hours, more hours, more hours because I need to take some time off for this. And you don't think about it. And all of a sudden they're like overwhelmed, but they're afraid to say, hey, I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
And because it could be a pride thing, could be an ego thing, could be a fear of loss thing. There's all kinds of different ingredients on this.
Sure.
But the best way to go about it is like, I'm coming to you so we can come up with a solution. I'm not coming here to complain. I'm not whining about this. I just want to be the best vet or vet tech I can be. And in order to do that, we need to see if there's ways that we can adjust some things. And what I find a lot, especially people that are delegating all the time, is the people that delegate more often than not do not have a great grasp of how much they've actually delegated. And all of a
Sure.
sudden they
Because
get,
if people keep saying yes, why
yeah,
would you worry about it then?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that
you're,
person's willing. I'll
yeah,
just dump it on them. Yeah, that's true.
and
They have to speak up for themselves.
yeah. And then they look at it and they all of a sudden, for most people, they realized, oh my God, I'm burning you out. And they
Right.
feel absolutely horrible. And they go, well,
Sure.
let me take this and this. I'm like, no, no, that, and there's that, oh, I gotta fix this. But then all of a sudden, the person that's been delegating starts overwhelming themselves. That doesn't solve the problem either.
Right.
So it's
Right.
let's kind of take a step back. And sometimes I tell them, don't even do it in the same meeting. Have some time to reflect on this. Okay, here's all the things I'm working on. I'm feeling. Can we have another meeting to kind of go over this? Because there's going to be that initial shock. There's like, and they're not necessarily prepared for it.
Right.
So let it kind of marinate a bit, and then they can go back and they say, okay. And depending on the person, they go, I looked at your workloads and I see, all these things we have you do on Tuesdays and stuff. We can actually have, somebody on Saturdays do it because it's quieter on Saturday afternoons when we're here, and they can probably address some of that. So let's shift some of that there, and it gives them more hours and gives them something to do, so they're not staring at the wall until 4 o'clock hits. Gives them
Right.
something to do. They're good at it, and so you kind of redistribute some things. And then you just like, okay, you kind of figure out that flow. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, you may look and say, okay, maybe we need to shift our well patient checks to the afternoons later in the week instead of doing them on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays as well. Because what happens in many types of work is when you're doing a well visit versus a diagnostic visit for somebody that's really sick, you know, it's pulling different parts of your knowledge and your brain and your skill set. Where a
Sure.
well check, you're like, okay, they're pretty good. Okay, what do we need to do? And you follow a checklist and everything's
It's
fine.
kind
But
of it's kind of a rote thing that you do every
yeah,
day.
yeah, where an emergency situation is, okay, where's the playbook? No, we threw the playbook away. You don't have it. You're gonna have to figure this out based on your
Right.
memory. And if you're fatigued and burned out and all that stuff, I can say, okay, what's your name? And I've done that before. What's your name? And there's a pause. Uh,
Yeah, because they're
uh,
in that fight or flight part of their brain where they're just like so overwhelmed and freaked
yeah,
out that they can't think straight.
yeah.
And that's when mistakes happen too, right?
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah,
establishing the boundaries around when you work and when you don't and how you work, it's an in a way it's a negotiation, but it's also in order for me to be the best version of me, which I think is what you wanted me to be when you hired me or
hmm
when I launched this business, what do I need that to look like? And sometimes again, you may have to take a step back and say, okay, what would make sense to me? And of course there's going to be anomalies. We know that. Um,
sure.
that's the puppy cough goes around the neighborhood and all of a sudden you've got all the puppies coming in because they all
Flooded,
picked up the
yeah,
coming in the cough, or rabies outbreak, god forbid never that happens, but there's always some pets that unfortunately aren't up to date on a lot of their vaccines, and all of a sudden they get it, and so you're
yeah,
dealing with that and trying to mitigate that and keep that under control. There's all these different things that can happen that are outside of the quote unquote norm,
the
but
norm,
if you have your days designed in a way where you can be prepared for that, it helps. And then of course you're like, okay, we allocate Tuesday mornings for emergency situations, and then there's nothing going on, but then you get a phone call and say, we got an opening at 11:30 today. Some people are like, oh, that would be perfect.
they love that, yeah,
And it's because you had some elbow room in there. You give yourself some slack. And a lot of people say, well, I got to keep maximize because I got to pay off my student loans and I got to, bring in, or I got rent and salaries. And I get it. We all get it. We understand
right,
these are the external challenges you face. But if you overwhelm yourself, then you could be, not to scare people, but to be truthfully honest, take all the things you're working on right now. Okay, we're going to drop a 17-week grenade into that, and you're not able to do anything.
right. Like what happened to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want people to get to
Do you
that
want
stage.
that or do you want to set some boundaries?
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
choices, right?
Yeah. Maybe set some boundaries and take
Right,
better care of yourself and figure yourself out and design your work days and your life. Is work stressful? Yes. It's life is stressful,
sure.
but the whole idea is how you mitigate and navigate through stress or around it. And when you're overwhelmed, you can't. You just
Yeah,
it's literally like you're in a boxing ring and they've got your hands tied behind your back and they got the other person just punching you in the body and the face and you're trying to dodge it, but
right,
eventually you're like, I'm gonna dodge to the right. They know you're gonna dodge to the right, so they're gonna punch you on the right. And so you're just constantly getting beat up, and it doesn't have to be that way. So you have to figure out, again, going back to designing your life, what's your ideal workday look like? What's your ideal work week look like? Based on the demands of what you have, and you align it. And it's not a set it and forget it as much as somebody that has CDO, and I have a poster that says I have CDO. And it says, I have CDO. It's OCD, but the letters are in alphabetical order as they should be. We want order. And a lot of us
right.
are like that. Other people are
Yeah,
free spirits. My spouse is a free spirit. I am not necessarily as much. I'm getting better, but
right,
that's some work to do. But we like structure. Why? Because it's predictable, and we get a little anxious as to when things happen outside of that. And
right.
again, that's a a good question for a therapist or a coach to work through. It's like, well, why does that bug you?
Mm-hmm.
And you can unpack some, some programming or some previous traumas or experiences. If you can learn a little bit more about you, you can help yourself become a little bit better where those things don't bug you as much. And boy, oh boy, when you get to that stage, it's like, okay, well, yeah, that didn't go as planned. All right, well, we'll just navigate through it. Where
Yeah.
previous version of me would have been pulling my hair out back when I had hair. So don't have that problem anymore,
Yeah.
but
But
it again,
it's all about becoming more self-aware,
hmm
digging deep and understanding what you want.
hmm
And also I think a really good point that you're making is that this is something that we all struggle with at times.
yeah,
And sometimes people think that if they're starting to feel burned out and that they don't love their job, that there's something wrong with them.
right,
And it's really not something wrong with you. It's something wrong with the way your brain's processing things, and it can change. You just have to get the help that you need to have somebody, kind of navigate you through that. And
yeah,
also do some self analysis and really think
hmm
about it. Because
yeah,
sometimes we don't do enough of that. We don't like, well, why is this happening? Why did I used to love my job and then a year later I hate it? Like
mhm,
that's not right. What happened? And so I like when you say become self-aware and do some introspection and, maybe do some outside work of how I want to be. Do I want to go back to the way I felt a year ago? Okay, how do I do that for the next, 6 months or whatever?
yeah, yeah. And I know a lot of people are afraid to look within, because the
Because it's
self-doubt.
scary in there.
Oh yeah, but it is. Oh
It's
yeah, it's
scary
like,
in there.
ooh, yeah. It's like let's open this box up.
Well, sometimes
Uh,
you feel crazy, right? It's like, why am I feeling this way? And
yeah,
it isn't crazy. It's just the way the normal human brain works.
mhm,
We just don't know what's going on in there sometimes, and so we have to figure that out in
yeah,
order to
yeah.
change it, right?
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, you have to figure out somehow, some way to deeply love yourself because you're
Mm,
never going to spend any more time with anybody else on this planet beside yourself.
that's a good point.
And if you don't love yourself, figure out how and figure out why. And again, that's where I'm working with mentors or therapists or trusted loved ones that will tell you in
Right.
a caring way what
Sure.
you need to hear. Maybe not what you want to hear, but
Right.
what you need to hear. And again, they're doing it not to condemn you or be critical of you.
Right.
They're with you. They want you to be the best version of you. Why? Because they enjoy spending time with you when you're that way. They love
Right.
doing things with you. When you're
Yeah.
not, they don't like you at all, and they don't want to spend time with you. They cancel plans, or they just it can, and you'll notice it. It's like, am I?
Yeah, that negativity rubs off on other
Oh
people.
yeah, and people, and sometimes
I want to be
you
around it.
Yeah, and then unfortunately there are people that crave on that and love drama, and they want to be around it all the time, and they play the victim card, and they feed off of that, and they're not growing. They're just gonna
Right.
they don't. It's that they don't want to see people do better than them kind of thing mentality. We see it all the time. Like in Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome because
Oh,
poppies are pretty popular there. So
yeah.
it's a situation where everybody's a poppy, but there's all of a sudden there's this tall poppy, and no one wants anybody to be better than them. So
Right.
they start knocking them down like negative, and they claim
Tear
all
them
kinds of
down.
different. Yeah, well, we see that in society all the time. You
Sure.
see somebody grow, get famous, maybe a famous actor, musician, or something like that, and then they have a misstep because they're human, and all of a sudden everybody piles in on them. Oh, what a piece of garbage that person is! I always knew he was that way or she was that
Right.
way, and it's like, why are we tearing people down? What do we gain from that? I mean, I don't ever recall ever you know, and of course I've been as guilty of it as well. When you can, make a comment about somebody or condemn somebody or call somebody something, it could be somebody famous or maybe somebody I don't ever recall seeing my bank account improve when I did that. I didn't see, oh wow, I got an extra $50 for complaining to somebody
Right.
today. I
Right.
don't. It's like it doesn't lift people up. And if they're struggling, offer if it's within you, and of course, got to have boundaries around that as well. You're not here to save the world. Save yourself first, please. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of times when we run into people pleasers as well that And we see that in the caring professions, vets,
Mhm.
they're caring, we want to help people. We want to work those
Right.
extra hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your own detriment? Like you're not going to help anybody then. It's like so
Yeah.
you have to have boundaries and establish what those boundaries are and figure out what they are. If you don't have them, figure out what they could be. Start off small. Don't try to, change everything at once because well, then you're not going to change anything. Pick something to start establishing some boundaries around it, and then from there, you'll get the momentum. You'll get to, the place where you want to be, and then it's just adjust as time goes on because what's important to you today in 2029 may not be as important. You may look at things a little bit differently. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's an
Definitely things have
ongoing.
changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what have I not asked you that I should?
Well,
Is
I
there
like
something we
giving
haven't
people.
talked about?
Yeah, well, I'll give some, and I've danced around a little bit on it, some, quick action items, or if people are
Okay.
feeling
I
burned out,
love
what
that.
they
I
can
love
do.
action
So,
steps.
so the first one is, and in my book, and I'll give you a link to get a free copy of my book, Burnout
Oh,
Proof,
awesome.
which is a quick read. It's not Tim Ferriss's Tool of Titans thickness. It's like it's
Short
quick
and
read,
sweet.
intentional, and
Yeah.
that's because if someone's burned out, yeah, here, read this 300-page book. Not happening.
It's not going
You
to
know,
happen.
here, read this. It's under 100 pages. Maybe I'll get into something. So, the first thing is, some steps on how you can, kind of ease the stress of the burnout and things like that. Number
Okay.
one, um, figure out your sleep. Get your
Oh, yeah. It's a good
get
one.
get your sleep. And because when you're stressed, you're not resting. If you're not resting, guess what? All the stress that piled on today gets added to tomorrow's stress and next week's and next month's and next year's, and then you too can understand what clogged arteries are about.
No, we don't want to
Yeah,
wish that on anyone
please don't. Yeah, just because I have a cardiologist doesn't mean
that we should
have.
all have one.
No, I would rather not. And when I go in for my checkups, what's been alarming too is when I first, started going back in 2009, I'd see, and I was the youngest one there by a long shot.
Right.
And now, I mean, time's gone on. I'm not, young, or I'm not youngish anymore. I wouldn't
Right.
consider myself old, but not youngish. But when I go in there, I'm seeing people in their 30s that have
Wow.
had cardiac events, and I'm like,
That's
that's
scary. Yeah, that
very,
shouldn't be
very scary.
happening. Yeah.
No, but it is. And my
Wow.
cardiologist is saying, yeah, it's like, at this point, I might have to go study pediatrics because this is getting
Wow.
ridiculous. It's like, yeah, it's bad. But get the best amount of sleep you can, and that means investing, if you can, as much as you can in your bedding, your pillow, mattress, blankets. Get the room dark. I'm a big advocate of sleep masks. It took me a while to get used to them, but now
Yeah.
I love it. It's like they're comfortable. You find the one that's right for you. It feels right. You
Right.
sleep really well. Because if you sleep well, then your body has the opportunity to repair the damage you've done to yourself today. And
Yeah.
that means you'll be able to deal with stressful situations better. So do that. We talked about food. Um,
Right.
Find the foods that are right for you. I'm not going to tell you don't eat, the brown paper bag stuff. I'll let your dietitians and your doctors tell you that. I'm not
Right.
going to. But find out, the food, and you can keep a food journal and just basically, and there's apps to do that. But also document how you feel, that day, the next day, because you may go feeling lethargic today or feel a little bit inflamed today. Okay, well, what did I eat yesterday? And you go,
Mhm.
Okay. And all right, yeah, that's why. And you go, okay, well,
Right.
make a note of it. And that way you'll know, all right. And even, this is a life hack that I did, years ago, where I learned, especially when I was doing a lot of traveling and doing keynotes and whatnot, you get up early at the airport and you fly out and all that kind of stuff. I learned right away, don't eat anything the day before that might cause you some gastro-related issues because
On
that's not
an
fun.
airplane. I
On an
know.
airplane, bad. At the airport, it ruins your, relaxation time. So,
Right.
literally go, all right, let's make sure that everything's
Plan
good. So,
ahead for your flights.
yeah,
I know I hate airplane bathrooms. I always tell my husband that. I'm like, if I can avoid the bathroom on an airplane, I've had a good trip. I don't
yeah,
even like going in there.
yeah, it's a little tiny in there, and it's bounce around, and
Too
I'm
many
kind of.
people have
Yeah,
gone in there before
yeah,
me. I'm like,
yeah. I
I don't want to
mean,
know.
yeah, yeah, and and of course they got the slanted thing above the toilet.
So you're hitting your head.
Yeah, I'm constantly, surprised with all the travel. My head
Oh
isn't
my gosh,
flat
that's
this part
hilarious.
because I've bounced around in there. And then, of course, you hit
Yeah, I love
turbulence,
it.
or, well, they don't call it turbulence anymore. They call it rough air. So you hit
Yes.
rough air and you're bouncing around like a pinball in there, and you hear the ding. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the flight attendant's knocking on the door. Are you almost done? We need you to return to your seat. I'm like, not quite done yet. I don't think you want me to continue in my seat. So
Oh
I'll
boy.
just buckle up and hold on. Um, but
So back to food.
yeah, just find out the foods that are right for you, and have those more often than not in your diet. Again, that will help with you feeling better, which helps with your sleep and your cognitive abilities and all of those things, which help mitigate stress. The
Right.
third thing is, keep track of how you spend your time, but more importantly, make sure that your calendar has that me time, those fun things. It doesn't
I
have to
like the
be big.
color coding thing.
Yeah. Go to those baseball games or go play pickleball or tennis with your friends. Go, I just recently lost an aunt, and my aunt and my other aunt were golf buddies, and they
Mm,
played golf like 3 times a week. So I feel bad for my Aunt Connie, who lost her golf partner that she's
golf
had
buddy.
for a
Yeah.
long time.
Right.
But I haven't talked to her recently on things, but my hope is like get back out on the links, go find
Sure.
somebody else, even if it's just yourself. So don't walk away from that. That was
Right.
an important part of your life. So
Yeah,
find
it's
the
physical and it's social, right?
yeah, it's physical and
Yeah.
social, and it's great for anger management to yell at that little ball as it goes in the absolute opposite direction of where you hit it. You
Yes.
you got the clubs, you're like you spent all the money and you know the swing and all that stuff. It's like fairways that way, the water is that way. Ball's like I need to go swimming, and
Yeah.
that's
My ball
why.
goes in the water more times than not.
Yeah. If you need to find the bunker, just ask me. If when I'm and I don't golf very
You've been
often,
in
but
all
when
of
I do,
them.
I know where all the yeah, it's like I don't it's like, well, you got to avoid the bunkers. I'm like, yeah. That's like telling me to
Right.
avoid breathing. It's like,
Right.
sorry, not
Right.
happening.
Not going to
But
happen.
do those things in life you're doing. And even when you're busy and you're working a lot of
Yeah.
hours,
Schedule them in
schedule them. And even if
first.
it's yeah, even
I
if
always
it's
tell
a
people do that first on your
oh yeah,
calendar.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's similar to, getting cleaned up and brushing your teeth and taking care of yourself before you go to work. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. Figure out when those things are. And even let's say one of those things you enjoy doing is, let's say you
Right.
like playing golf with your friend. Okay, well, you know what? Can't do 18 holes. Can you do nine? Yeah, I can do
Right.
nine. Then do the nine.
Then do nine. Yeah.
Yeah, at least you're still doing it, and
Right.
it gives you that mental clarity. So you can be good at what you do, and in time you increase it and you find other things to do. But it's, eat well, get your sleep, live life. Your work is not your life.
Mm.
It's a way to live your life.
It's
And
a job. I think veterinarians think of vet med as a calling sometimes.
oh sure, yeah.
And so we do kind of over prioritize our work.
Hmm.
But I think if you step back and say, well, it's actually your job too.
Yeah,
And so you do have to lower the priorities a little bit so you can enjoy your home.
yeah, yeah, because it's like people that are like, I'm doing all those great things, I am making all this money. How's life? You enjoying it?
Yeah, right.
I'll leave you with this story. I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. So
Okay.
there's this fisherman who's got a young family and whatnot, and he's really good at fishing. He just fishes all day and brings home enough fish to feed the whole family, neighbors, and all that stuff. Really good. He gets on the radar of a local fish company that's like, oh wow, you're amazing at what you do. It's like, why don't you come work for us? It's like you can, you know, do all this stuff, you'll make a ton of money, and you'll be, show everybody how to do all this stuff. You can run divisions and all that, and then, and all of that stuff, and you have a great career, and then, you can retire. And he's like, so I do all this stuff, and then when I retire, I will fish all day, feed my family. It's like, I'm already doing that.
Right.
And it's all about priorities. What's important to you? If
Sure.
it's to make a lot of money, okay. Why? What do you want to do with that money? What will that money do for you? And
Right.
I'm not saying yes. Look, I want everybody to be as prosperous as they want to be so they can cause the positive impact in humanity. We need everybody to do that.
Sure.
But why is that important to you?
Mhm.
What's the end goal? I'm going to work all these hours so I can fish
Right.
and be really good at it and provide for my family.
But
Well,
if I work a few less hours, I can still fish.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
can still do it
Right.
and teach others. It's kind of a parable, but teaching
Yeah.
others how to fish.
Sure.
But it just figure out what is important in your life and give yourself permission to change your mind. I think a lot of people, and we talked about that
Yes.
earlier, a lot of people think, well, I have to do this.
Right.
I've worked in accounting, IT, finance, healthcare,
Right.
nonprofit, for profit, wish they were profit. There are all
Right.
kinds of different types of
Yeah.
entities and things like that. And it's, yeah, I do it. I've enjoyed it.
Okay. It's
And
okay. Doesn't
yeah,
mean that you failed at your original career. It just means you did it and
yeah,
you put a bow on it and then you tried something else. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Give
Yeah.
yourself
And there's
permission to
so
try.
many ways to be a veterinarian. I think we forget that. And that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons I do this podcast is I want people to know that, you don't have to be a hospital owner and work every day,
Right.
with the patients. There's other ways to,
Mhm.
you know, have an impact.
Absolutely.
And also, if you get your brain in the right space and you set enough boundaries, you're going to love being in the clinic with the
Oh yeah.
patients.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you
You,
wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah, you'll be on
So, yeah,
vacation and wishing you were back at the clinic because you have so much fun at it, and not just
yeah,
because you feel like you're missing something.
you
You're like,
have
no,
to.
I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah, I'm having a blast. I love that. I miss seeing. I'm gonna miss seeing Sebastian next week. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
can I
Little
shorten my
Sebastian.
vacation? It's like, all right, fine, fine, all right, I'll bring Sebastian in
I'll
just to
bring him
drop.
in to
Yeah, yeah,
visit.
yeah, yeah. He can entertain you for a few minutes.
That would
There
be
you go.
good for your vet hospital if you just bring him for a visit once in a while.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah,
make their day.
exactly.
So tell people where they can find your podcast and
Mhm.
say the name of it again, and then where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and what you do.
Yeah, the podcast is the Breakfast Leadership Show. It's on all your flavored podcasts, the Apples, the Spotify's, YouTube, and some other places I've never heard of. They have it there too. So feel free to. I have a lot of amazing human beings on that show. Very fortunate. I've been doing it for
Yeah, I have to watch
going
that. I
go,
love
going
leadership.
going on 9 years. It's
Yay.
amazing
That's
that I've
awesome.
had the show as long as I have. It's been
Yeah.
an absolute blast to get to talk to just great human beings, and I learned so much from it, and I know my audience does too. To find me, breakfastleadership.com. There's the links to all kinds of different things. If you want a copy of that burnout proof book that I have, it's available on Amazon. If you want to go buy a physical copy, go for it. But if you want a PDF copy, just go to breakfastleadership.com/burnout book. Name and email. I don't need your birth information or social security number or anything like that. Just name, email. We'll send you the stuff. I won't spam you. If I'm occasionally I might send something, you can say no, don't send that to me. I'll be like, okay, cool, we won't. But yeah, that way you get a PDF copy of it and read
Love
it
it.
and take away some things that hopefully can help you find the ideal version of you.
Well, I really appreciate you being here today. It's been fun.
I've enjoyed it as
I
well.
love the subject matter and I love your approach to it, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Have a beautiful week, everyone. This is Michael D. Levitt. So look him up on the Breakfast Leadership Network, right?
Correct.
All right. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, Michael.
Bye. See ya.